Starting off right where episode 7 ended, Farron finds Kelly floating face down in the pool while Bloody Rose stands outside the fence taunting her. Farron chooses to jump in and save Kelly instead of going after Bloody Rose, obviously. The rest of the girls meet them in the locker room, and Tabby stands in front of a locker that says Tyler. Kelly apologizes for everything that happened with Hell House, and the girls head back to her house to find Mrs. Beasley is still locked in the closet from last episode, which rules her out as being Bloody Rose. The liars leave Kelly to talk with her mom, but during their conversation, Kelly tells Mrs. Beasley about Bloody Rose, and Mrs. Beasley suspects Miss Langsbury because she has an awful darkness inside of her. Who else is darkness? Wes. The liars leave Kelly to talk with her mom, and they head over to Pinball Pizza, where Imogen tells the girls that Dr. Sullivan is missing, but still a suspect because she could just be gaslighting them, and it's suggested that Dr. Sullivan and the real Rose Waters could be working together. This reminds Mouse to tell the girls that the real Rose Waters was literally at her house because it turns out she's friends with her grandma, and Mouse's post had a bunch of people stalking the real Rose, so Mouse took her to Crazy Joe's train car, but when the girls head there to talk to her, all they find are rose petals. The next morning, Tabby's mom calls her and Imogen downstairs to hear the news that Archie supposedly died in a prison riot at their Ravenswood penitentiary. They're all suspicious about it, so she tells the girls that Deputy Maroon is headed out there to see for herself what's up, and we don't hear back from Deputy Maroon the rest of the episode. Noah talks to Jen about Bloody Rose, and Jen brings up male suspects, asking how well they know Imogen and Tabby's new boyfriends since they showed up out of nowhere, and so did you, Jen. Shut the fuck up. This actually causes a problem when Noah brings it up to the girls, because not only do they start to argue a little bit, but it actually does lead to Tabby and Imogen trying to investigate their boyfriends, neither of which situation ends well. Imogen acts jealous and demands to see Johnny's phone, but doesn't find anything, and he's still so patient about it, and he assures her that he wouldn't do anything to hurt her. So when they need something from the freezer, Imogen volunteers to go, and she finds the 3 dead bodies of the murdered teenagers. She freaks out and grabs a wrench to confront Johnny, and he tries to calm her down like he has many times before, but she hits him in the head and then drags his body into the freezer and locks him in. Knowing what I know now, poor Johnny. Tabby calls the AMC where Christian worked before, and the manager tells her that he doesn't remember a Christian Peel. I'm sorry, his last name is Peel. First of all, fake. But second, how is that not a fun fact that he would share immediately upon introducing himself to everybody? This guy's obsessed with horror movies, and he even references Get Out. How is it episode 8 and we're just now learning his last name is Peel? So while Christian Peel is at the theater, Tabby sneaks into his basement and finds the Davy mask, but before she can leave, Bloody Rose blocks the stairs and Tabby falls back down and gets knocked out. Mouse finds clips on Spooky Spaghetti, teasers for a movie called The Reckoning, that are actually the murders from the first 2 episodes. Somebody was filming them, and I gotta say, not very well. She gathers the girls, and her computer teacher calls her to tell her that the Spooky Spaghetti servers have been traced back to the Orpheum, so now the girls really think it's Christian and Johnny, but it's definitely Wes. The girls confront Christian at the movie theater, and Mouse asks where the servers are, and Christian takes them upstairs. The girls find the server with the letter saying, "Hot in here, or is it just me? Check out my movie in screening room 3.
Wonderful! This whole time we should have been looking for Dr. Seuss.
They find the screening is a live stream showing Tabby at the church. Tabby wakes up, locked in the confessional box with the message, "Confess your sins," written on the wall. She sees Rose dead in the other side of it, and when she breaks out, she's surrounded by masks on poles, and each girl's test art on the walls. Oh, and Pastor Malachi's body at the front of the church. She's blocked from leaving and then confronted by Bloody Rose and someone dressed as A, and we find out that Bloody Rose is in fact Mrs. Langsbury, who is working for Wes, and Wes is making the ultimate horror film where you kill somebody for real while you film it. Wes pitched this idea to Chip once, and even Chip, the serial rapist, was like, "You're joking, right?" And Wes is like, yeah, I'm joking. Just kidding. Forget I said anything." Mrs. Langsbury demands that Tabby says she lied about what Chip did, and what's actually crazy is that Wes acknowledges Tabby's position as having to tell the villain what she wants to hear even though she knows it's not true, or standing her ground and dying for it. So, Wes knows that Chip did what she says he did. He knows that. And he still teamed up with Mrs. Langsbury so she could get her revenge, just so he could make this movie. So Wes is the one that made Spooky Spaghetti, and he used it to build the story and to recruit people to work for him as proxies. So there's a few of them in the church to help keep Tabby from leaving, and then there's more at the theater that are trying to stop the girls from leaving to rescue Tabby. So Tabby does what Tabby does, and she says straight into the camera that she and Imogen were raped by Chip and they're survivors, and then she continues to stand up to Wes and put him in his place as the shitty garbage loser that he is, even commenting that without her, he doesn't have a movie because, yeah, his whole movie hinges on her being the final girl. So when she gets the chance, she runs and breaks through a window to escape. Wes sends some proxies after her and tells Mrs. Langsbury that he will be back for the post-credit tag with the sacrifice, and he should know better than to say that he'll be back. Tabby runs into the woods and fights off the 3 proxies that are after her, which is very cool because 1, she was previously really triggered by the woods, and 2, that ties back into the self-defense classes we saw the girls taking in episode 1, which also come in handy when the girls show up to the empty church and Imogen asks where everybody is, and Bloody Rose comes out of the confessional and Farron just kicks her right in the face. Tabby makes it to Bloody Rose's cabin and she questions whether a real final girl would walk into a death trap, so she opens the door and hides around the side to trick Wes into thinking that she went in. Tabby finds a pitchfork and enters the cabin behind him, asking if he found it or if he made it, and then remarking on his set decorating skills. He says she won't kill him with a pitchfork, but then she does stab him into the wall with it, which they don't bother to show us because the violence is implied rather than shown. Tabby wanders out of the shack as the rest of the liars find her. They head inside to check if Wes is dead. He's not, and they find that Dr. Sullivan is tied up in the closet. 2 weeks later, the girls retake their tests and have a final session with Dr. Sullivan. She recaps that Wes and Mrs. Lankberry have been arrested and that Spooky Spaghetti has been shut down, so I never have to say those words again. Later, while she's packing up her office, Dr. Sullivan is on the phone with her publisher, and he says the girls will have to sign off on the book, but Dr. Sullivan says they're all narcissists, so she's sure they will. It feels like a very weird and sudden shift in her character, but okay. The power cuts out and Archie shows up because of course he's not dead, and Dr. Sullivan pleads to know the truth about if he actually killed her son, but he doesn't give her that and he stabs her to death. Whatever. Oh well, apparently she was bad because of the book thing anyway. Also, I guess Johnny wasn't her son, but he broke up with Imogen after she attacked him with a wrench and locked him in the freezer, so we may not see more of him anyway. I am pretty happy with the Ultimate Horror Movie storyline. I think there was enough there that, we could theorize about it. I was disappointed that Wes survived. I know that Sheriff Beasley and Chip both survived season 1, and then they were killed off in the first episode of this season, but I think Wes should have died in the finale. I think he did his part being in season 1 and then being the killer in season 2, and I think that should be it for him. I think he should have died when Tabby stabbed him with the pitchfork. It went right through him. Why is he alive? Since the show is exploring the characters being traumatized by what happens, I think it would have been really interesting for Tabby to actually kill Wes and have to live with that. She was in a life or death situation and she had to do whatever it took to survive, and it took killing somebody. How would that affect her? I guess we won't know, but besides that, I don't know why Rose Waters had to die. I think it's fine that Dr. Sullivan died because the girls are done with therapy anyway, and apparently she was bad. And I'm excited to see what Archie being back could mean for another season, mostly just because I want the villain to be an A again, so that this makes sense. And it took killing somebody. How would that affect her? I guess we won't know because they were too chicken shit to do it.